Hey everybody, Todd Mitchell here. Welcome back to Game Dev Breakdown. What you are about to hear is part of my event coverage for the Virtual Indie Games Expo 2020. Big thank you to the event organizers for having me out virtually, of course. You can find a link to them in the show notes to see more of what they're up to and what they're about. In each of these episodes, I will speak to multiple teams who showed off their projects and are doing their thing. It's all very interesting. They're great folks to get to know, so hang out, relax, and enjoy this event coverage.
Good evening, fans. Tim Kitzrow here, the voice of NBA Jam, and you're listening to the Game Dev Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by CodeWritePlay.com. Whoa, boom shakalaka!
My mom gave birth in 1985. I was bluer than a Pac-Man ghost, barely alive. In the Cold War, my only blanket was Tetris. I played Rampart with Reagan, rampaged the world for breakfast. The laundromat was my sanctuary, that arcade was my church. I thought I was
Dylan, thank you for joining me. If you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself to the listener and tell us what you are exhibiting at Indie Games Expo.
Hello, my name is Dylan McCusker. I am a tabletop game designer and producer, I suppose. And I was exhibiting Crumbs Foul Waterfowl, the expansion to my Kickstarter game from last year, just titled Crumbs, at the Indie Games Expo.
When did Crumbs come out, the original?
I started working on it in 2016. I Kickstarted it in 2019. And the production was done and distributed out to all the backers and put into sort of general distribution and purchase online in February 2020.
Explain at high level for folks what the game is, because I actually loved this when I looked into it.
Yeah, it's a 2 to 4 player, 30 minutes to an hour or so area control board game, where each player takes on the role of a different animal army who are all battling over breadcrumbs in an average city park.
I love that concept. I mean, is that one of these sort of things like inspired by real life, like watching silly animals do silly things?
Sort of, yeah. Our initial, so when I started this project, I started with a friend, and we talked about what kinds of games we wanted to design. And one of the things that came up were pigeons. They're just such a goofy, undistinguished sort of animal that people don't really talk about much other than with disdain. So we thought it would be funny to make a game about them, and tossed around a few ideas, one of which had to do with like, oh, they're like, fighting over somebody who's feeding them crumbs. And then that's where it sort of evolved to like, oh, what other kinds of animals do people, in public spaces feed? Sitting on a park bench, what kind of animals you see run up to a person to beg for some crumbs, and in that way just use those for inspiration for different powers and abilities, and figured we could get a broader range of interesting mechanics by introducing different types of animals.
It's a super entertaining concept. Did you have a background in like board game anything? Was this your first go at this kind of thing?
This was my first go. I have been an avid board gamer for many years. I guess it evolved from starting a tabletop gaming club in college. Oh. And at that club, it just kind of became, oh man, I really like this game, but I wish it could have done this better. Or I really like this game, but it would be so much cooler if it had this faction. So it just came from that desire to get the most out of board gaming in general and be able to have a hand in what we play, make the perfect game, that we would want to play, sort of deal.
Yeah, it makes good sense. And this is something I've kind of explored before, because I think a lot of game designers on the computer side or on the video game side, surely those of us who at least played board games a lot growing up and stuff went through at least a phase where it was like, I would love to design a tabletop, experience of some kind. But when you really start to think about it, or at least when I did, and I thought the same thing about card games as well, but when you think about it, it's like there are a million video game design books at this point. Maybe not a million, but it's something that some very, very accomplished people have written very exhaustive books about. You don't really have as much of that on the board game side, was what I found. I have found a couple of good books since then, but I even asked a presenter at a convention one time who was showing off their card game or something. I said, how did you learn the design for board games. Like, how do you even do that? And they were basically like, I don't really know what to tell you because you can't teach it. Do you find that's true also? Or, I mean, were you able to find good resources on your way in?
I was able to find plenty of good resources on running a Kickstarter, but for designing a board game, I think there's a few notable books that people typically refer to. The two off the top of my head are the Kobold Guide to Board Game Design and the Art of Game Design. The second one I mentioned, Art of Game Design, actually kind of, I feel like, fits with my thoughts on the subject, which are that I think board game design is I don't know, it's comparable, but it's different. It's similar. I think a lot of the primary techniques and skills in designing an experience are the same across whether it's a sport game or a video game or a tabletop game or an RPG, etc. You know, the medium through which you make this game can vary, but I think a lot of the sort of techniques and principles are the same, and that the art of game design sort of goes over that. Because when I think of video games, I think obviously the biggest hurdle is coding. If I want to make a game and I want to make it digital, then I have to learn this whole skill set that I have no background in whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I guess the board gaming equivalent to that would be like maybe people, like when there's no computer to process the sort of, if it's a Euro game, you know, if there's no computer to process the mathematics, the calculations involved in scoring different points in different ways, then you're relying solely on the players to do that and the ways the player interacts with each other. And so like that, those are the things you're thinking about rather than like thinking about the way the computer interacts with the game.
Mm-hmm. It seems like success here probably comes from translating the conventional wisdom correctly. This looks like a really fun game to me. Like I haven't gotten to try it, of course, because we were at a virtual expo and not one where I could do it. But did you have a lot of opportunities during development to like have people play test this? I mean, any board game developer I've talked to has had to do some serious play testing. What was it like for you?
Playtesting is definitely like one of the most crucial steps of the development process. And I think playtesting Crumbs was helped out a lot by in-person conventions pre-March 2020. So when I was developing it, I was able to bring it to various conventions in Boston and as well as to shops in New York and Portland, Oregon to like demo it. And every time I demo the game, before it was made, I was constantly like taking notes and asking for feedback. At one point, I showcased the game in an after school program in New York City that was like specifically about board gaming. So I got 20 kids playing 4 copies of the game all at once and got all of their feedback all at once, which was super helpful. So yeah, I think being able to bring it to these large crowds and get totally fresh eyes was something that was super crucial to the creation of Crumbs.
Yeah, and I've developed an educational app game for younger kids before, and it's funny you mentioned that because I have done playtesting at a school, like a school event in the past too. And in some ways it's the best, and in other ways it is just the worst. Do you know what I mean when I say that? It's like it's fantastic because you've got these honest little humans playing this game. They've got good ideas. They know what's fun. They know what's not fun, and it's very valuable. And they also don't care what you think about their feedback, so they will say anything they want to you.
Totally, and they find ways to break the game that maybe because they're not making the most strategic sort of moves possible, but rather just the most emotionally charged moves as possible. So they start to do things that you wouldn't expect and like make alliances in a game that's not necessarily geared towards that and punish each other and like take revenge on each other in ways that I didn't see with adult players. So
that sounds exactly like what I was expecting you to say, which is funny. What was the experience like presenting a board game at a VR expo? I mean, like everybody I've talked to said like, yeah, the event was great. We had a lot of fun. I mean, do you feel good coming away from that? Like you achieved something this weekend?
I do. I I feel like it's the first time I've had to present it digitally, and it's the first time I've had to use Tabletop Simulator in that way, and it went smoothly, and it kind of made me feel more comfortable and opened the doors to, I think, more digital events. I didn't actually seek out this event. Somebody emailed me through my Tidbit Games website and informed me of it and suggested I might look into exhibiting there. So it kind of fell into my lap, and doing so, I think, made me a lot more comfortable and realized that this is this thing that I could do. And because it's virtual, it's a lot easier. You know, I don't have to travel or pay for travel. I can pop in and out as necessary for scheduled demos and panels without like being exhausted in a convention hall all day. So it's definitely like an added benefit or a new avenue for me to be able to talk to potential, fans and people who haven't been introduced to the game before.
Yeah, I love the concept. I mean, we're eventually going to get to a point where there are going to be physical expos again, and I don't know how they're going to get me to come to it after this. I've spent this whole year covering events and interviewing people and stuff from my office where I should be for the best, quality, I think. You're doing a physical product. I'm very much not. So, but you were able to kind of give people a good feel for the game using Tabletop Simulator. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think I could have demoed the game or, played it with people directly, but it kind of hinged on the fact that they already had this Tabletop Simulator Steam game available, or that they were willing to drop $20 for that, which is unlikely. So that definitely does present a challenge. I think some tabletop games using Tabletopia or another tool I learned of recently, screentop.gg, which are kind of like a couple free tools you can use to make digital versions of board games online, would be a lot easier to get to like play with people in a virtual event, because all they have to do is go to this link. But with Crumbs specifically, because it has this dropping mechanic and it has some very three-dimensional pieces and a three-dimensional kind of world that's required, it actually requires a physics engine to work when transcribed digitally. And Tabletop Simulator was the only tool that I was able to find that would allow that had a physics engine that I could utilize.
Board game design's been around forever, of course, and I really love that we're developing technology to sort of push it further, make it a little more accessible. Using these games and the software, you can really take it a long way without, you're off publishing your materials or, using scrap paper and stuff, which is all great. It's all traditional, and we've all done some version of that in the past, but I love that the software is here. And I mean, I guess people are starting to do versions of it in VR now and everything. It's kind of fascinating to me.
Definitely. It's been super critical for the last 6 months of, like I mentioned, we're developing an expansion to the base game. And for the last 6 months, it's been super critical to be able to navigate this and add components to the Tabletop Simulator version of the expansion and be able to talk to my co-designer over the phone while both in this virtual world and manipulating the components and playtesting the game simultaneously while we're trying to social distance and quarantine ourselves.
So you get through the upcoming expansion. What do you think is next?
Next, I've got a couple more games on the slate. One, which is, I would say, pretty far along. It's now just reaching its sort of playtest and blind playtest phase, called Heave Ho. And that is another very three-dimensional game, which is just about a bunch of pirates arriving on an island at the same time looking for the same buried treasure. And it's sort of a race, and the game takes place in a 4x4x4 tall grid of tiles, wooden tiles, which each represent like little piles of sand. And so the players are digging up and down into these tiles and tossing them off to the side and making the sort of terrain undulate as they search for this treasure. And then the other big game I've got going at the moment is, which I had to sort of put on hold due to the pandemic, is called One of Us. And that is what I like to call a social induction game, because it features or the gameplay consists of a few cult leaders trying to induct as many members as possible into their own cult over the course of however long you want the game to last.
Nice.
And that actually plays 8 to 45 players. And I've done that a few times at various parties and gatherings pre-pandemic, and it's went over great. And then it was probably the main thing I was focusing on, actually, once the sort of state of emergency was declared. And then I was like, oh, well, it's not a very good time to be designing a social gathering 8 to 45 player kind of game.
Bad timing.
During this time. Yeah. So I kind of had to put that on hold, and that's where I started to focus on Heave Ho and the expansion. But recently, been working with a friend to develop an app for that for one of us, so that I can be able to play test that virtually with as many people as I want. And that's coming along well. So hopefully that'll be ready to go in about a month or so.
Fantastic. Well, based on these ideas I'm hearing, I'm pretty comfortable saying you were meant for this. This all sounds extremely fun to me. So let listeners know where they can sort of follow you and your work.
Sure. You can check out my website at tidbit, TIDBIT, games.com, or follow me on Instagram. It's probably the primary social channel which I update. And that is tidbit.games on Instagram. I've also got a Discord channel, which you'll find linked on the website and on Instagram if you want to potentially even, join demos or virtual play tests and things like that for these upcoming expansions and games. Always looking to build that sort of play testing community.
I am excited to check out Crumbs and see what's coming up next from you. So congrats on this. Congrats on a good expo weekend. Maybe we can check in again soon and sort of see how things are going.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
It's been great.
Let's take a quick break to thank our sponsor, AppFigures. AppFigures is all about helping game makers get more downloads and revenue. You know AppFigures for analytics and app store optimization. Now AppFigures can help you track competitors, from downloads and earnings to their audience demographics and even which SDKs they use. Their competitor intelligence gives great context. Say a competitor adds a new feature or was mentioned in the news. With AppFigures, you can see if that brought in more downloads. Have a new app or game idea? AppFigures will show you how big the market is and how much you could earn. Whether you're growing your app or building a new one, AppFigures can help you reduce risk and get more downloads without a huge budget or a data science degree. It's affordable and simple. AppFigures provides guides and tutorials to take you step by step through gaining more visibility with ASO and increasing your revenue by learning from your competitors. Head to appfigures.com/on/GameDevBreakdown to try AppFigures for free. If you like it, use our special code GDB3030 to get 30% off for 3 months. Again, that's GDB3030 to get 30% off for 3 months. Big thank you to AppFigures for sponsoring the show. Why don't I have you introduce yourself to listeners and tell me what you showed off at the expo this weekend?
Oh, sure thing. Well, my name is Ben Davis. I went to school at Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design for game design. And I have since then been working on this player versus player board game. It's just something that I kind of started out with in college as sort of almost like a thesis game, and then just kind of like had it evolve from then. It actually kind of came out of sort of an introduction for myself into the world of Dungeons and Dragons and sort of tabletop gaming in that regard, because I was mostly, before that, more traditional Milton Bradley sort of kind of Monopoly, pretty basic board gaming. More traditionally a video gamer myself, so it was kind of relatively new territory for me at the time, and I've just come to love it. It's a huge scene, actually. I mean, I've been to a few of the board game cafes here and there. I've gone to several conventions for where they have like sections for tabletop gaming and such. I was actually, just before the pandemic kind of hit, I was over in PAX East checking out some of the stuff that they had, and it blew me away how big the tabletop scene was, really. I mean, So it's kind of kept me going this year for the current project, Clash of the Genres, which again is just kind of my love letter to popular media. It's a lot of kind of fun parody references bundled into sort of a death battle royale sort of scenario. I've always loved the kind of the rogue gameplay approach where everybody never really knows exactly what strategy they're going to come up with, but they pick it up as they go through the battle. So that's where I was when I was designing the gameplay for this. I kind of embodied that sort of random nature spirit to it. But yeah, it's just been kind of tweaking it, going over designs. I've changed the general. Like the player count, for example, and the amount of cards have kind of shrunk down into a more family game night sort of number, or even just like friends over, just small groups, rather than kind of its roots and its origins, it was much bigger, sort of like kind of a big party game. There's people, and I have some associates over in California, and they did these bar crawls with the original copy of the game. So it's kind of evolved over the last few years into what it is now, and I'm pretty excited to go into next year with a possible physical release for it.
So that's where we're at. We're basically gradually moving toward a wide physical release of the game.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, my associate over in California, he is kind of actually on the hunt for app development for the game as well, because we both have talked over about how the potential for it being in a mobile sort of setup would be pretty dang cool. I mean, again, much more accessible, and if the network was working right, it would be, again, the potential for a mobile release. But he's on that end of it. I'm on more the physical copy, because I've had the physical copies before. It's what I've initially was going for, but we're kind of like split duties on that. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that first prototype for what the version is to this day, because we've done a lot of tweaking over the last couple months with playtesting.
Playtesting is so critical for it's critical for all games. I mean, obviously you should playtest a video game before you go take it to Steam or something, but for a board game, nobody skips it. Everybody understands it's crucial. And it's a big deal that goes on for a long time. I mean, has the game changed a lot in response to that?
Oh, absolutely. I think, again, it kind of it had a reflection of who the player base was, who my focus groups were. I went from kind of the casual friend groups to people that were more kind of hardcore tabletop players, even fellow game designers. Honestly, the last couple of months, I've come to know several groups of just game designers, and they've helped really kind of approach it from a more critical side of things that I hadn't really thought of in sort of the smaller social circles, where everybody's just kind of like, yeah, we know the game, we've seen it a million times, this is how we do it. And again, the spirit of the house rule scenario and all that kind of, people have like their understandings when they're playing the game enough times that it just felt like almost a different game at one point, where it was that, I mean, just giving you an example, like the initial card count for the deck was 160 cards. Now it's down to 100 cards. So there's just so many more scenarios that had to be kind of narrowed down into a more of like tighter gameplay experience. Because that's what I was really going for after talking to these game devs. Is like, oh, okay, yeah, you got to think about who, where is this being played? Who is your audience? Is it a family? Is it a group of friends? Again, the bar scene, it's hard to think about that. But what I narrowed it down to with this is a much tighter gameplay experience, something that's kind of done within 45 minutes to an hour. You get in, you duke it out with some friends or family, and it's not overly complicated, but you could make it that way if you wanted to. There's enough levels of strategy to what's in the game, and again, the potential for expansion and adding to those kinds of games. It's just, what I'm excited for is kind of the unique nature of it, where it is sort of a combination of a card battling game, but with a board to sort of strategize as you're on the field. You're moving around. You're not just like, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait for the player's turn to kind of kick these cards at my way, my damage. It's like, no, I'd like to be able to actually react to that. Be like, oh yeah, well, I played this card while you're attacking me, and you can't suddenly do that. There's a little bit more in-depth back and forth death battle. So I like that added level of strategy, and it's been so great getting to see people play it in action.
Yeah, and I mean, at very high level, I mean, a new player picks up this game. What's the experience? I mean, what do they do?
Honestly, they kill a lot of the early players pick it up relatively quickly. I think I've had more people struggling over the interface to Tabletop Simulator than my game, which I see that as a personal triumph. But they're like asking me questions about the interface, and they're not asking about how the cards work. They're like, "Oh, you already explained it. I get that." It's like, how do I, rotate the camera or draw this card?
Yeah, totally. How do you keep a board game project going during a global pandemic?
Digital. That's again that they had their small gatherings with the bar. He was telling me over in California that there was a few small gatherings with it, and I did take it to PAX actually as well. So that was my last physical kind of demo. Was I played a few rounds at PAX. Great fun time. Again, what I ended up getting was a couple of families. The families loved duking it out, and trash talking the whole 9 yards. And then you had a couple of groups of younger ones too. So again, I was kind of trying to test the waters on both sides of it, and again, it's funny how it translates almost the same way. Honestly, it's just like instead of your friend, it's like you're yelling at your mom, like, you got me. What'd you do this for? So it all kind of translates in a death battle the same way.
It's almost like they bring that into the game, dying to get that out of their system. In this nice controlled way.
The venting, the competitive edge that gets put into the game. Gotcha.
So I love projects that let me get a little bit of that into my game night. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. What are some of the great board games that inspired you sort of on your way into design yourself?
Well, again, as I was saying, I did kind of come from a more like old school, but again, like Risk and Stratego were definitely two of my top favorites from the old days. So I definitely like that element of board strategy. Again, like for me, it's a little bit more than just drawing the cards and kind of rolling a dice even, and again, I was being introduced to Dungeons and Dragons when we were kind of brainstorming this game idea. So again, just a little bit more on the strategic side, and I've since picked up a few other ones. There's a lot of popular deck building games out there right now, which again, a little bit different than what I'm trying for, which is everybody gets the same deck of cards. There's no distinction between who's going to get what. It's all like, all right, this is the pool. We're all going to draw from it. No one has the added advantage of, I've got this deck over his deck. I like the deck building approach, but I was hoping that, the well-roundedness would kind of make it a bit more like appealing for people who feel like they get that unfair advantage. I don't know about you, but when I was playing, games like Magic the Gathering and such, I'd be like, oh man, you got that one card that's probably worth a pretty penny, and it's going to win you that game. That's sort of whole mentality. I was trying to keep it a level playing field basically when I was designing the game. And the balancing part is probably what I'm most proud of, because going to make sure like nobody's out within the first round of the game.
A lot of people will greatly appreciate that for sure. What was the experience like presenting at a VR expo? I mean, did you come away feeling like, yeah, that was a great use of my time?
Well, I did see it kind of on the 2D space, and it was a little bit weird on my end. But, again, it felt a little bit kind of just put together last minute, and I get that, but I did see how some other presenters had put together their stuff. And, I did have the Tabletop Simulator demo. I do have that up at any point in time. Anybody can play that. It's fully functional. I just got the rulebook updated the other day too, so it's a functional workshop mod. And I could have showed that, but I didn't know exactly how they wanted me to do it within the 30-minute time window.
Sure.
I did have a problem with that one time. I was on Fox News, a Fox News segment for my game, talking about it. They were doing like a stint on tabletop gaming. And I was, for some reason, they had not told me a darn thing. They were just like, all right, you're just going to get up here at this point in time, talk about the game, blah, blah, blah. They didn't even say exactly how long it was going to be. So I'm standing there slowly trying to explain the ins and outs of the game and setting up the board space and everything. And then they're just like, yeah, we got to cut this off now. We're done. So it's like, I got to watch my time. You could give someone a heads up there.
That's a fantastic story for multiple reasons. It's
Right.
interesting that they were, talking about this stuff in the first place, but that they didn't really prepare you for it is even better.
Oh yeah, no, very little going in, knowing what to do. So.
My goodness. And I mean, there were at the expo, there were several board game designers present. I just spoke with Dylan, the designer of the Crumbs game. And
Okay.
it's interesting to me because I almost feel like since we got to a point where we can do less physical gathering, I know your project greatly comes much before the pandemic started, but I think a lot of people got interested in like, I miss playing games in a room with my friends and having my friends in the room in general. I almost feel like we're seeing sort of a resurgence of this kind of design right now. Have you noticed that at all?
I would say, again, with having gone to PAX, I think, again, the indie game development has been going strong and only picking up speed with things that have been going on. I would say that, having been at that last convention and seeing so many of these new projects, again, we're not talking expansions to previous games or anything. We're talking like brand new titles that I'd never heard or seen of. Amazing art. There's people lining up to buy them. I think one of the ones that comes to mind is like one about birds. It's literally just like a deck building game where you have different species of birds, but there were, again, people lining up asking for it, and it had just been revealed. So I think they just added that to Steam as well. So they're kind of covering both angles on that.
It's outstanding, yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm just happy that I have the workshop mod as something for someone, anybody who's interested in, while they're waiting for me to get, all the physical stuff done, they have that option if they have Tabletop Simulator. So yeah, I definitely would say that there's a lot of, just game design in general is being just lit a fire under with, people having the home time to work on them for sure.
I agree. There have been a lot of very unique changes that have allowed us to really sort of run with the design in general and development in general. And of course, a lot of credit goes to the creators of these various tabletop like simulator things. I've heard of several software programs in the last couple of weeks that are allowing people to do most of that design work without having to go, play test at PAX or manufacture a set of, test parts or anything, or draw out the notebook paper stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that either. But there's never been a better time. And the only question for me is like, people ask for advice, board game design. I don't really know how to get started, and I feel obligated to like point people in the right direction. I've wanted to do design of this kind of project as well. I'm not really sure what to tell people, like how, other than play the games with a studious mind, break down what works, what you like, what you don't like. I don't know, what books or podcasts or anything people should pay attention to. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, and again, like I was saying, there's more and more resources by the day. Again, I would start with Discord for one, or even like Reddit boards, wherever like social media you go in to kind of do a search for, and just see how many are game designers, board game enthusiasts, anyone that's looking to brainstorm and pitch ideas off of. And, half the time these people have already done, 5, 10, 15 different projects already under their belt, so they can give you the voice of wisdom just from their experience. I've talked to several people that have blown my mind with the way that how much there is to think of as being, for example, being a self-publishing is a whole nother ballgame to having, a game in your boat that you're trying to get a publisher to pick up. That's like two different sides of the same coin, but it's just like, wow, there's a lot to think of with that. And to find the resources, it's basically networking. It's really coming up with the right people. And I would say a name shout out I would throw out is the Game Crafter is a great resource for just seeing some of those independent, low budget even projects that you can do. And they have all the components. That was my biggest struggle when I did my first draft for Clash of the Genres, was getting the proper components that I like to make it look professional when I had a prototype on the floor. So I struggled with a few different companies back then, but now I've been dealing with the Game Crafter, and it does seem like they have a pretty solid selection of the things you need to start a board game. If you did want to mess around with sort of a concept, they're kind of a good resource that I've been.
Nice. Very cool. So speaking of shout-outs, let me know. Clash of the Genre sounds awesome. Let listeners know where they can check out the game and your work in general.
Absolutely. I do actually stream it. I try to get me and my buddies, the same ones that are over in California doing the bar crawls with the game. We tend to meet up every Wednesday, and we play the game. If you want to see it in action, we're just a couple of jokesters playing around the death battle. And you can kind of see it in action. And my Twitch ID is Proto165. So I do stream that on Wednesdays most of the time. I'm not sure if we're going to get together with this one before Christmas. It might be after the holiday, but for the most part, I still have the Twitch streams up there from previous game nights. And also we have the website, clashofthegenres.com, for any updates and stuff like that. I do have a Discord as well with announcements as well. If anybody wants to follow the Discord, they can message me and I can get them that info. And yeah, that's it. I do the email would be our company, Indie Pineapple, indiepineapple@gmail.com. So that's Indie Pineapple. That's the company we're going to publish the game under is Indie Pineapple. And
Gotcha.
yeah, we're trying to get that Kickstarter probably around sometime in the late spring. Again, I have to kind of pull some numbers together and get some. I need extra hands. Is really what I need. I need a few more people to kind of be like, all right, we can structure these Kickstarter framings and all that. It's a lot to go over, but yeah, I'm always happy to network. Again, I think that's the heart of it. Is you just gotta get other people out there that share your passion. And I'm very passionate about this. Again, it's kind of a love letter to popular media genres. I'm a big entertainment buff, so anybody that plays this game is going to be laughing without the sheer amount of references they're going to see in it. And again, just a lot of love went into it. There's about 16 different artists that have done the artwork for the cards. So it's just again, that's probably one of the biggest compliments I always get. Is like, man, this game looks great. So I hope to get into everybody's hands hopefully next year for sure.
Awesome. Well, we will look forward to more news about that physical release, and hopefully we can have you back on, have a longer chat.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's play a couple rounds sometime. You
Love
want to have a go on the death battle?
Sounds great. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and good luck with it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to our guests. If you enjoy the Game Dev Breakdown podcast, I would love to have you subscribe on the platform of your choosing. Hit that follow button on Spotify, drop a rating and a review on the Apple side. We have show notes at CodeWritePlay.com. We are all over social media at GameDevPod on Twitter, at CodeWritePlay, and me, Todd Mitchell, at MechaTodzilla, 1D and 2 Ls. Love hearing your feedback. Reach out with topics, what's on your mind, what you're up to, and we love talking about that stuff too. So, more next time. Take care of yourselves out there. Keep working hard, keep making us proud, and I will catch you next time.
At that moment, nothing mattered in my life more than seeing my 3 initials at Lakeside with a high score. But now I'm older, there's no quarter to resurrect or hit reset. It's either game over or success. I'm walking towards a light bright, no regrets. It's just me.